Hey everyone. So I want to show you how you can create an app that can send an email um, to you whenever you have a bill that's due. And the idea is that you will have a list of all the bills that you're paying on a Google Sheet somewhere, along with the amount that they need to be paid, and most importantly, when they're due. And the idea is, every day Google will scan this sheet, and if there's anything that is due within the day, you will receive an email. So let's give this a test. So I have like three test items here. I have a bill for a house, for example, a phone bill, a medical insurance, and today is January 21st. So I should be receiving an email for the phone bill. So that's due on 21st as well. I will show you the code. It's right here, but uh, it will live on, if it's going to be your first time coding inside Google Sheet. Google has a platform called AppScripts, which you can access through extensions AppScript. And when you open that, it's basically a platform where you can add your code. And I will show you how to code it later. But for now, I just want to show to you how it would work. So this is the code. I had the AppScript open, and basically I'm going to click on run, and it will run the code, and I should be getting an email for the phone bill. Let's try. Okay, let's wait, and there you go. We got the phone bill here, and the message is I need to go to a website and input my account number, which is uh, the message also on column D. And as you can see, it has the amount that I need to pay for, which is in column B, and what I need to pay for, which is in column A. So that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, let's get coding. All right, so to start coding, the first thing I want you to do is to pull up a spreadsheet from a free Gmail account. And I say free because if you have a Google account with your school or with your company, you are going to run into authorization issues later. So make sure that you are creating it from a free Gmail account. So I'm going to go create mine. And let me just explain the authorization a little bit. So basically, you are going to build an app, and that app will be built through the Google Apps Script platform. And that app will be sending emails on your behalf. Google is not really happy about that because who is this app? We don't trust this app. So it's going to tell you that an app is trying to send an email on your behalf, and you are going to have to allow it, like give it permission to send an email, or not only send an email, to view a spreadsheet for you, etc., etc. And yeah, if you're basically, I believe your Gmail or Google is under an organization, you might be running into authorization or permission problems. So we don't want to deal with that. So just make sure you're in a free Gmail account, open up the spreadsheet, and you should be good to go. And so what I'm going to do here is just reconstruct this from scratch, and you will see me doing a lot of copy pasting, just for the sake of efficiency and speed here. So yeah, so I've copy pasted the format. I want it to be the same. So on the item column, I want to put everything that I need to pay for. So it's going to be house. I'm just going to, as I said, like reconstruct. So it's going to be exactly the same. But I'm doing this so that I can walk you through how I built the code in a little bit. So the amount is going to be 1,040 and 50. And it's due, the first one is due yesterday. Today is 21st of January. So the second one is due today, and the third one is due on yesterday as well. And then I have some instructions how to pay here. This is something I want to send to myself so that I don't have to forget, like how I need to pay something. Like if I need to add an account number, possibly my logins. Probably not the safest, best thing to do, but if you want to do that at your own risk, go for it. And then the email is where you want to send the reminder and the email to. That being said, this means that you can also send reminders not only to yourself but to whoever you want to send an email to. Say, for example, that you want to remind your classmates or your coworkers of a task or a chore. You can send them automated reminders. Or if you're in a position where you're loaning money and you feel a little bit awkward to kind of like ask for the payment, then you can just automate the reminder as well. So yeah, there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and open AppScript. So go to extension, AppScript, and this is the platform. AppScript was developed by Google. So basically it's Google's own language. And this language borrows so heavily from JavaScript. If you're familiar with JavaScript, then this should be a breeze for you, with minor little tweaks to be custom. That was custom made for Google. And the main idea was this is the language that you want to use if you want to create lightweight applications inside Google. Say for example, you want to integrate, you want multiple Google workspaces to interact. Say what we're doing here, we want the Google Sheet app to interact with the Gmail app, but you can also use it for third-party integrations. For example, I think I've made some videos about creating a Telegram bot. I think the Google Sheet was talking to the Telegram application, and I built all of that in Google. I've also built some automation in the past where if I want to extract the followers of someone on Twitter, I can also do that on Google Apps Script. It's really handy, and you can easily Google the documentation, the manual for this, and learn it yourself. This is the reason why I'm able to build apps now, because I read, not extensively, but I'm kind of familiar with how this works. So if I can do it, then you can do it too. You just got to put the time and energy into getting to know how AppScript works. Cool. So this is what AppScript looks like. This is where we put our code. Later, we will be discussing triggers, and triggers is just a way to trigger the running of our code. So we can basically attach our code to a certain time of the day so that it will run at a certain time of the day. In my case, my code runs between 8 to 9 a.m. daily. So that means that between 8 to 9 a.m., if I have a bill that's due, I'm going to receive a reminder. This part is where you add a code, and there's already a placeholder code here, and it's asking you to, it reads function, right? It's asking you to create a function. Function is just a fancy way or a way to group code that serves a purpose or a function. So in my case, I'm going to name my function pay reminder, because the function of my code is to send me payment reminders. Now go ahead and save that. Control S if you're on Windows, I believe, and Command S on Mac. And notice this. Earlier it was deactivated, and now you can now click it. You can now click run, etc. Your function or my function is now a drop down here, pay reminder. So what this will do, if I click run, if it's gonna run my code. But right now my function is still empty. Okay, go ahead and give your app like a name as well, build reminder. And so yeah, this is where we start coding. So the first thing we want to do is, okay, so let me just explain the logic a little bit. The first thing we're gonna do is to tell AppScript to go to this, not this one, to this Google Sheet here. Let me also give it a title. So, hey AppScript, go to this Google Sheet, locate the due dates. That's what we're going to tell it to do. And we're going to tell it, if there is a due date that is within this day that matches the date today, I want you to grab the item, the amount, the instructions how to pay. I want you to grab that information and send it to me via email. And my email can be found in column E. So that's what we're going to do. that being said, the first thing we need to do is to point AppScript to our spreadsheet. So we call in the spreadsheet app, I believe get active spreadsheet. So this is the part where I'm gonna start cheating and looking at my code here so that I can, I don't, because I cannot memorize this code, right? Like developers or coders, normally they just copy paste things from someone, and I'm gonna do that too. So I believe get active spreadsheet, and there you go. And then we pass it the get sheet by name method. So from the word itself, our sheet normally has a name. It's not Build Reminders 2. It's this name here, sheet 1. All right. So just go ahead and pass that sheet 1. Obviously, you can rename it yourself if you want. It's not a problem at all. And now what I want to do is to save this inside a variable. So in algebra, you can give a formula a certain name, right? Like you can say x is equal to 2 or 2 plus x, 2 plus y, etc. Same thing with programming or coding. You can give codes a certain name so that you can easily reuse or call it later without having to type the whole thing. So I'm just going to say var, which is a shorthand for variable. This is how I assign the variable name. I'm going to name this sheet1. Var sheet1 is equal to this, right? And then I'm going to call on sheet1, and I'm going to tell it to go to column C. So I'm going to say, hey, sheet1, hey, AppScript, go to sheet1, get this range. And get range is basically a way of locating or mapping a certain data or value or element inside a sheet. So C2C, if you're, if you can guess, is basically column C, but it starts with row C2. And that's because I only want to get dates. I don't want to have to deal with the header. So I'm telling it, hey, go to column C2C and get the values inside that, right? And let's name this the Jew column, right? All right, so how do I know as I'm building this thing, like I want to be able to get feedback and to know if I'm doing the right thing. And one way to do that is by using the logger.log. If you are familiar with JavaScript, this is equivalent to console.log. So basically, if you want to test your code and run it, right, you can do that, and it will return to you the result of your code, right? So I'm gonna logger.log Jew column, and what I expect is that it will return to me the contents or the values of column C2C, right? So let's run it. Run this function pay reminder. So this is the thing that I was telling you about. Google is telling us to give this app permission first to read the Google Sheet that you have. All right, so this is, all right, and Google isn't very happy with this because Google doesn't know us. So it's like, hey, I haven't verified this app. This app is not registered under me. So just click on advanced and go to the untitled project. It should have a title by now. All right. And basically this project, Build Reminder or untitled project, is asking Google to see the spreadsheet, right? So we just allow it. Okay. And that's what I was expecting. It returned to me January 20th, January 21st, which is what I have here, and then January 20th again, which is what I have here. And then all the empty things, and I don't really want the empty things, so I'm gonna go ahead and filter the empty things. Let's see if this will work. So it's filtered all the empty stuff, but I have another problem, which is if you're from like this open and closed brackets, which looks like this, is basically an array, and that's it's a type of a data structure. And if you noticed, inside one array there are 3 different arrays, which I guess represents the cell. And I don't want that. I want everything to just be in one array, and then I want the elements outside of the inner array. So what I'm gonna do is flatten that out by using the flat method, and voila, it's now the inner arrays have been taken out. The whole thing was flattened, and it now returns to me just 3 elements or 3 dates inside one array. Cool. But I have another problem with this. The thing is, I'm going to compare these dates to the current date. And as I'm seeing it, there's a time element to it, which is going to be problematic, right? And I'm also seeing a time zone element to it. So I'm going to go ahead and take out the time element and maybe superimpose a certain time zone. I'm going to use whatever time zone the spreadsheet is using to this, so that later, once I'm comparing it to the current date, obviously I will also transform the current date to the same time zone so that they're comparable. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create a for loop. So a for loop is basically, so I told you earlier that this is inside an array, and that means that if we want to transform the dates, we need to go inside the array and go one by one each element and apply some code. And to do that, we use what we call a for loop to loop through each element as we are applying the code. So I'm going to say for element I or element X, or this is also just a variable, you can name it however you want. I'm going to say for element I, we'll start with the first element. Okay. First element of an array starts with 0. It doesn't, like if there are 5 things inside an array, the numbering does not start with 1 to 5. It starts from 0 and then ends with 4. I believe this is what you call like a 0-based index indexing, right? So with an array, we start with the first element being 0. So I'm saying with an element, the order of an element that starts with 0, with I starting 0, I want you to go to the element before the total number of elements inside the array. So the way I would express that is saying do column.length. So this do column.length is basically you telling AppScript to count how many elements are inside the array that is named do column, and then say I++ or I plus 1 is us telling AppScript to go to each element one by one and apply some code. The code will live inside this bracket here. So this is the for loop. So basically we're telling AppScript, hey AppScript, I want you to get the first element 0, and up right before the last element, I want you to go one by one each element, if that makes sense. All right, let me just put the code here. Where am I? Cool. So yeah. Now we're gonna use the utilities class, which is on the Google AppScript manual. This is what we call if you want to format a date. So we're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna format date, and we need to pass the do column array, but we need to send it. We need to identify which element we are calling, or we are reformatting, right? So if there are, okay, let me just demonstrate this real quick. Return logger.log, right? Okay, so this is element 1, right? Comma, element 2, comma, element 3. Because this array is 0, because the index starts at 0, then this is element 0, this is element 1, and this is element 2. Now when we say do column open bracket I, we're identifying the specific element inside the array, and we identify that by passing the element number, right? So if we say do column 0, then we're talking about this. If we say do column 2, then we're talking about the last element, because this is 0, this 1, this is 2. So that's what we're basically doing here. We're gonna format the date, but we're gonna apply it to each element, right? Then we also need to I'm also going to call, or to look at the time zone of my Google Sheet and just use that as I reformat the date. So I'm going to call spreadsheet app that get active, and I'm going to say get spreadsheet time zone. Guys, I want you to be careful, by the way, with when you're calling all these methods and classes. Be very careful on the capitalization, because Google Apps Script is pretty sensitive about that. Google's time zone, and then I'm gonna also pass the format that I want the dates to be. I'm gonna say, yeah. So this should work. Cool. So it says execution started, execution completed. It's been transformed. But there's no way for me to call the transformed the new dates, right? Except if so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an empty array, because okay, why due dates brackets, and I'm gonna say whenever you transform, hey AppScript, whenever you transform an element, can you send it to the due dates array? One way you do that is by calling the due dates object or the array, and just say push. Just push each element to the due dates array. Cool. Now, if I want to log this, I can just say logger.log due dates. Yeah. And what I expect to see is 3 dates with the new format. There you go, 0. Now there's no time element, much cleaner. I like it. Right? So what we need to do now is compare it with the current date. So to get the current date, you just say new and just say date. Let's log that. Cool. Now we have the date to date, January 21st. We're running into the same problem. There's a time element. There's also a time zone element. So I'm just going to copy paste this whole thing here and apply it to the current date. So copy pasted, and then instead of passing due column 9, I'm just going to say new date. All right, so now it's 0/21/2023. It looks like I can now compare it to the elements inside due dates. Okay, so I just said elements inside the due date because I cannot just compare current date to due dates. As you recall, inside due dates there are a number of dates, so that calls for another for loop. So I'm gonna say for I, like the first element 0, for each element inside due dates, starting from the first element down to the the element right before the last element, if that makes sense. Due column dot length, sorry, not due column, due dates. I want you to go and loop through or go through each element one by one. And once you're running into each one of them, I want you to compare if the due dates, not the whole array, but each element is equal to current date. Now that looks more comparable. And if they are the same, I want you to grab, all right, say for example, phone bill, right? We know that the due date and current date here is the same. We want the code to grab the corresponding item, the corresponding amount, and the corresponding instruction as well as email. That's going to be tricky because now we have to tell Google Apps Script to get the corresponding item to the row of the due date, right? If they have the same row, yeah, grab that information, right? We don't want it grabbing like this one or this one. We want specifically those that are in row number 3. All right. Okay. And one way to do that, as I told you earlier, is to use the get range method. Get range is a way for Google Apps Script to locate values inside a sheet. So we're going to do that. And it's as easy as giving it the coordinates, right? We're going to say it's like X and Y axis. So such that phone bill here is at coordinate 3, at cell 3, comma 1, because that's the first column. 40 here is at 3, 2, right? So on and so forth. So the order of the element is super important, right? If you recall, each element here is going to be, has like an element number inside the array, because now this is inside the due dates array, right? We transformed it into a format that doesn't have the time element now, and the order of each element inside an array is important because that's going to be our row, right? Okay, and also, okay, so let me just actually just show you what that might look like. So I'm gonna start with like the item, right? Like the item column. So I'm gonna say the item that corresponds to this due date is located in sheet 1, get range, and then you want to give it the element number or element order and the first column, right? And then you get the value of that. Let's log what that might look like for a sec. Okay, it's returning the word item, which is located here. And we know for sure that the match is here, right? Like this is the element that matches the current date. So why is it, we're expecting it to return phone bill? Why is it returning item, right? So that's the problem. So the reason for that is 2 things. One, when you're passing rows and columns to Apps Script to locate a cell, it's the indexing starts with 1, right? Because like with arrays, the indexing starts with 0. So it's almost like you have to add a +1 to offset the 0-based indexing used by the array. So I'm going to say I +1. The second thing is, because like if we do I +1, it's still inaccurate. It's giving how, so where's the other unit coming from? If you recall earlier, when we were trying to get the due column, we started with C2, right? Not C1. We started with C2 because we just wanted to get the dates. So we're going to have to account for that again and add that up. So technically, you are going to need to add 2 units to your row. And you should get the phone bill now, right? And you're going to just have to do the same thing for everything else. So var item, var, what's the next one? Amount, yeah, is equal to sheet 1 get range I2, but now it's in a different column. It's in the second column. So now you just say 2. And then instructions, I believe this is in the 4th column, right? D, and then email will be in the 5th column. Email. All right, so there you go. If you want to test everything out, I actually don't know if log accepts multiple. Yeah, I'm just gonna say item plus amount. That way, yeah, that way it will return both things. So it's a way of concatenating strings together. You express that by the plus sign. Amount, instructions, and email. All right, there you go. So we have the item, we have the amount, and then this is the instruction, and then the email. So now we have everything we need to send an email now, right? All right, I'm gonna replace this with, to send an email, you call on the mail app. This is also gonna require permissions because now we're sending, this app is gonna send email on our behalf. Google's not gonna be happy about that. We need to give it authorization. But we'll deal with that later. So mail app, that the syntax is you just call on the send email method that comes with the mail app, right? And then you pass it you pass it 3 things. The first thing is the email, the recipient of the email, and we know that that is stored in the email variable. The second thing is the subject. So whatever subject you want to say. And the third one is going to be the message body. So mine is hidden in the messages are here. So I'm just gonna pass instructions. The subject though is, I just want to say like friendly reminder to settle space, your, to settle maybe like space and then plus the amount. I'm just gonna call that here, amount, and then I'm just gonna put space again, I'm gonna say 4, and then put the item. So I'm gonna say, this means that if I need to pay for the phone bill, I'm gonna receive friendly reminder to settle 40. I can even put the currency, like say like pesos, because I'm in pesos, or dollars, right? If you're in whatever currency you're in, dollars for phone bill. And then if I open the email, the instructions on how to settle it will be there. So let's go ahead and do that. Run it. There you go. There goes the permission thingy. Just give it perms. Go to advanced. Now you need to give it permission to send email as well, not just see your spreadsheet. Execution completed. How do I check that? I'm gonna log into That's on Mars 2 and see if I received an email of 40 of a reminder for 40 to settle a $40 thingy. Okay, that's on Mars 2. Okay, there you go. So friendly reminder, just sort. Did I say dollars? Yeah, I did guess I did say dollars. $40 for phone bill, and then the message is here, which is what the instruction contains. Let me just add a little space there. But yeah, that's it, right? That's it. There you go. To pay 40 for a phone bill. That's it. So what you want to do now, right? Because like you cannot be manually running this all the time. So we're gonna attach this to a trigger. And to do that, we need to deploy this first. Deploy the app. Ooh, now you're deploying your own app. Exciting. Okay, so you can actually give other people access to run to your sheet, and then like to also like run run your script, or it can just be yourself. So now you have version 1 of your app now, and you can now go to triggers, add a trigger. Basically, you're saying that with this trigger, you're gonna run your pay reminder function, the latest version of your app. So I'm just gonna do version 1, and this source is a time-driven trigger. So I want this trigger to run every day at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., at least for me. And then if there's failures or problems, please notify me, maybe like daily or immediately. Up to you. Save that up. And there you go. It's currently 4:51 my time, but I'm expecting if like tomorrow comes, I'm not gonna receive any reminder because nothing here is due for 22nd. Maybe like I'll put that up. But if there is like this thing here, the insurance thing, tomorrow at 8 a.m., I am going to receive a reminder on my email. So that's how you can build yours. I hope that this has been helpful. I'm gonna link the source code somewhere, and you can also check out like like the tutorial in text form. I'm gonna publish something on Medium, so that if you're more of a reading person, yeah, you can just like use that as reference. Cool.